Hey beauties, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm sharing 10 of the best and 10 of the most disappointing fragrances that launched in 2020. I know we all hate disclaimers, myself included, but please, 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 nobody take offense if I say I didn't like something that you really loved. Fragrance is completely subjective. The only opinion that matters is your own. And it depends on our personal style, even our body chemistry. There are fragrances that I love on other people, but I would never choose to wear them because on me it just doesn't smell quite right. The video is intended to start an open dialogue, not hurt anybody's feelings. In fact, I have you guys to thank for my fragrance journey last year. A lot of my new favorites and new brands that I discovered were thanks to your incredible recommendations. So keep them coming. If you have a favorite fragrance from 2020, drop me a comment, let me know. I keep a running list on my phone, and every time I'm out, I'm always seeking new fragrances that you guys have recommended. So I hope we can keep this conversation open, understanding. Let's go ahead and get started. Starting with the best fragrances, I'm not presenting these in any particular order, and unfortunately, I'm not in a position to smell every single fragrance that launches. So again, if there's anything that I left off the list completely, drop me a comment. I would love to hear about it. But I'm going to begin with what is the newest fragrance to join my collection. This is Angel Share from Kilian. This was love at first sniff, and I cannot get enough of this fragrance. I find it to be incredibly intoxicating, and I did not think I was going to love this based on the description. Just goes to show you. You really can't judge a fragrance by the notes. You have to smell it for yourself, let it dry down on the arm. The notes can only tell you so much. But as soon as I smelled this on the blotter, I was really interested. Sprayed it on the arm, let it dry down. It has cognac, cinnamon, vanilla in the base. It also has hazelnut, oak wood, and I thought it would be a little bit more masculine, but it's not at all. It is a little bit sweet. I get a lot of cinnamon vanilla, but it's incredibly sophisticated. It's not overly sweet. It's not candy. It smells very rich. From the moment I spray this fragrance, I'm in love. And as it dries down, it just gets better and better. And I wore this just yesterday, and I woke up this morning and I could still smell it in my hair. And it just wraps you in a warm hug. This is the perfect fall, winter, cozy type of fragrance. It would be great for date nights. It's very sexy, very sensual, but incredibly elegant. Another sensual fall-winter favorite is the new interpretation of Chloe that launched this year. This is the Chloe Nomad Absolute Eau de Parfum, and it's one of the few new interpretations that I really loved, but this is amazing. It still has oak moss, just like the original, so it's an earthy, woody fragrance. It also has Davana and cherry plum, so it's a bit more intense, a little bit syrupy compared to the original. And I love the original Chloe. I have the little travel spray, but this Absolute takes it to the next level. It's really lovely. It's like they captured all of the best parts of the original Chloe and just amplified them, made them even better in a way. Really beautiful fragrance. I think if anybody loves the original Chloe, they will like this. It's almost a bit more feminine. It's a little bit less edgy and airy than the original. It's a little bit more sensual, a little bit more sexy. Really beautiful fragrance. I'm so happy they came out with this. Sticking with the current theme we have going on here is another new favorite. This is from Christian Louboutin. It's the Loubi Rouge, part of the Loubi World collection. They came out with 7 or 8 new fragrances. This was the first one I tried, and I'm convinced that it is probably the best. I've only tried a couple of them so far, but they do not compare to Loubi Rouge. It is so yummy, sexy, definitely date night. This would be a great party fragrance. Had we gone to Christmas parties, a New Year's Eve party this year, I would have worn this fragrance because it is very powerful, it's loud, it has a lot of projection, people are going to smell you, they don't have to be super close, but it makes a statement. It's bold, but it's so sexy and powerful, and it's the type of fragrance that you don't mind if it's in your face a little bit because it just smells incredible. Key notes of the fragrance include cardamom, iris, and vanilla. Definitely has vanilla in the base, which gives it that creamy, feminine sensuality, which is long lasting. But when you first spray the fragrance, it's kind of all over the place. It's very bold, very spicy, almost as if you're walking through a spice market. And then as it starts to dry down, it almost goes through a leathery phase, which I personally would not love, except the dry down is even better, and then it warms back up and it becomes very feminine. Another one of my favorite fragrances, this is definitely best of 2020 material, it's the new Tom Ford Rose Prick. It's not new anymore, but it launched February 2020. I remember thinking it was perfect timing right around Valentine's Day to come out with this beautiful baby pink bottle, which is such a departure from all of the other Tom Ford Private Blend collection bottles. It certainly stands out on the shelf. This was inspired by Tom Ford's personal rose garden, because of course, and it is such an interesting rose fragrance. I fell in love with this the moment I smelled it. So you have a lot of different rose varieties in here. You have Bulgarian rose, Turkish rose, rose de mai. It also has fiery pepper and spice, and Indonesian patchouli. I don't always love patchouli in fragrances, but I think in Rose Prick it's essential because it just sort of balances it out. It makes it really interesting. So it's not just a typical rose fragrance. It doesn't smell like any other floral fragrance. It's very unique in that way. It's definitely a Tom Ford rose fragrance. Another warm floral fragrance on the list is the new Chanel Coco Mademoiselle L'Eau Privée. This is the latest interpretation of Coco Mademoiselle, and I thought they couldn't up themselves after they came out with the Intense version, which I really love. It is so bold, spicy, and delicious. But this is meant to be a lighter version. It's a light bedtime interpretation. It's also meant to be sensual, so you could spray this on before a date night if you're cuddling on the couch, if you want to have a romantic evening in. It has rose, jasmine, white musk, and it's not as light as you might think it would be. I was afraid that it was going to be non-existent. I would spray it on and it would completely disappear. Well, that's not the case. It is definitely there. It lingers, but it is a skin scent. It's more of a personal fragrance. So when you spray this on, somebody has to be a little bit closer to you to really smell it. I think it is perfect. And especially for some people who are a little bit more sensitive to fragrance, I think this could be your everyday version of Coco Mademoiselle. Next is a classic floral that I completely fell in love with as soon as this launched. This is Giorgio Armani My Way. It has tuberose, orange blossom, and vanilla, which I love. Tuberose and vanilla gives it a really nice creaminess. It's vibrant, but it's a very sophisticated daytime fragrance. If we were going to work, you could wear this to the office. There's not a place that you couldn't wear this fragrance, so I think it has a lot of appeal. You just know you smell really nice whenever you walk into the room. The cap was inspired by a natural stone, so there's this touch of natural beauty as well, which I think, again, just ties in so beautifully with Giorgio Armani. I think everything they do is about classic natural beauty. Really pretty. Another Giorgio Armani fragrance that launched in 2020 that really stood out to me is this Ocean Dejoa. This took me by surprise. I discovered this fragrance in the Sephora Favorites perfume sampler set. I did a video on it, I think back at the very beginning of fall, end of summer. And I don't have anything like this, and I think that's why it stood out so much, because it's more of an aquatic style fragrance. And I know there's a whole line of these Dejoa fragrances. There's Ocean Dejoa, I think there's a Air Dejoa. It has sparkling pear, water jasmine, sandalwood. It just transports you to the beach or somewhere near a body of water, and it's very comforting. It feels very calming. It's almost as if you are one with nature. Just like Giorgio Armani My Way, it has a natural beauty essence about it. Oh, it is so good. It's so beautiful. It's very fresh, light, sparkling, fruity, floral, little bit of everything. Another one of the best launches in 2020 is the new Valentino Voce Viva fragrance. This is so beautiful. It is very soft, incredibly elegant. It's very difficult for me to put this fragrance in a box because I think it would work really nice for daytime. This could be your signature scent. It could be your everyday fragrance, but it's also so perfect for a black tie affair, special occasion, a wedding, date night, even just a night in. It's really lovely. It's a bit softer, so you have to be kind of close. Key notes include Italian bergamot, orange blossom absolute, and crystal moss accord. I love this fragrance. It's slightly sweet. It has an addictive quality right away. If you like sweet perfumes, I think you will really like Voce Viva. It's sweet, but it's also very sophisticated. It's a warm floral fragrance, but you get that zesty bergamot right off the top. You have that touch of sweetness, a little bit fruit with your florals, and then the dry down is when you get that creamy, very sensual base. It's just a delicious fragrance. This next fragrance choice might be a bit controversial for a best of 2020 list. It's not something that I own. I'm still sort of toying with the idea of purchasing it for myself. But even though it's not a fragrance that I would wear, I still appreciate the fragrance itself. I think it is so interesting, so dynamic, and really brought some excitement to the fragrances of 2020. And that is Lion de Chanel, the exclusive. Here I have a little baby bottle. I have a little sample. And I think I fell in love with this fragrance because I received a couple samples and they just sort of sat in this room and they filled the entire room with fragrance. And every time I would walk in here for probably a week following that day, I would smell the fragrance and I would always walk in and say, it smells really good. It smells really nice. And I would remember that's the Lion de Chanel fragrance. I almost wish it was a room fragrance or a candle. I think that would be really interesting. Hopefully one day Chanel will come out with candles. I know some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it. It is very strong, very ferocious. It took me on a roller coaster ride. When I first sprayed this fragrance, I thought it's incredible, it's amazing. I sprayed it on the blotter card, love at first sniff. When I sprayed it on the arm, my opinion changed. I kind of didn't like it. Then I started to like it again, didn't like it. By the time I got home, I really liked it. But at that point, it was too late and I was kind of left with my thoughts. And I've just been toying with the idea ever since. Let me know what you think about this fragrance. It reminds me a bit of Chanel No. 5. It definitely has the Chanel DNA. You smell this fragrance and it's like, wow. It has a rich amber accord, bold notes of bergamot, lemon, patchouli, and sandalwood. It's not overly feminine, it's not overly masculine either. And at one point, I think around the 20-minute mark, I started to smell a lot of leather. I think that's what turned me off. But what you're left with, kind of the trail of the fragrance, is really feminine, but it's very strong. The 10th and final fragrance on my best of 2020 list is a total fraud. I cheated. I had to round out the list with another favorite, but this actually launched in 2019, not 2020. I can't help it. It's not my fault that there weren't better fragrances launched this year, but it's Mon Guerlain Intense. I almost talked about a men's fragrance that launched last year that I really loved, but I just love this so much. It is worth talking about again because this has become one of my go-to fragrances in my collection when I'm not sure what I want to wear. I used to grab other fragrances. Well, now I grab this, and it is relatively new. I think I picked it up maybe in November, but I've loved this for such a long time, and the original Mon Guerlain is really beautiful, but the Mon Guerlain Intense is delicious. It is so sexy, so sensual. It's not so moody, over the top, dark and delicious that you couldn't wear this during the day. I think you could wear this anytime. But it's a showstopper. People will ask you what you're wearing. I get so many compliments every time I wear this fragrance. It's warm and spicy. Keynotes include lavender, vanilla, and patchouli. But it smells like something you would want to eat. It is just delicious, so sophisticated. I know I've told the story before, but in case you haven't heard it, I took a couple samples of this fragrance on a weekend trip down to Key West with my husband, and I was just going to use that as my fragrance so I didn't have to take a travel spray or any bottle of perfume with me. And he kept complimenting it, saying, "You smell so amazing." And he was just really going over the top, describing how much he loved the fragrance. And it kind of planted a little seed in my mind. I thought, okay, he really loves this. I should look into getting this. I didn't tell him. I haven't mentioned it that I purchased this because of him. We talk about it, but we don't talk about it. And just the other day, I wore this to lunch with my girlfriends, and as I was leaving, he stopped me again and said, "You smell so amazing." It was going on and on about the fragrance again. So I know that he really does like the fragrance. He wasn't just trying to butter me up or get on my good side a couple months ago whenever he first talked about it. And now we're going to talk about 10 disappointing fragrances that launched in 2020. It happens, it's unfortunate, and again, please nobody take offense. I would love to hear from you guys one way or another. If you love these fragrances, you dislike these fragrances, let us know. Sound off down below in the comment section. The first disappointment on my list is Tom Ford Bitter Peach. And this was truly a disappointment because I remember saying in a video even, I think it was a Love It or Leave It, I was so excited about a new Tom Ford fragrance because they didn't do anything that remotely excited me this year or last year in terms of beauty. It was syrupy sweet, very candy peach right off the top, but then the dry down was a lot of bourbon, wood, pretty masculine actually, and I don't love a fragrance that is really masculine. I don't mind woods, cognac, leather, tobacco in a fragrance, but I don't want to smell like a man, and I just felt like it was too different from start to finish. It threw me off. It didn't last a very long time, which is a common complaint for Tom Ford Private Blend. Just not really overly fussed. I didn't think the bottle was that beautiful, the bright orange color. I think they could have done a really sophisticated job, but I didn't like it. I felt it was a really cheesy fragrance. Next on my list of disappointments is YSL Libra, which I don't think launched in 2020. I think the Intense version is what launched this year. Now, I have not tried the Intense version, but I've heard and I've read that the Intense version is sort of what you wanted out of the original. I liked the original, but it smelled too similar to other fragrances that launched right around that time period, and I just remember feeling a bit underwhelmed by it. Yes, it was really pretty. I love the bottle, and if I didn't already own so many floral fragrances, maybe I would feel different about it. Next on my list of disappointments, California Dream from Louis Vuitton. This launched, I think, spring, summer, and I remember seeing photos of the bottle and thinking, I love it. I want that fragrance just because it's meant to look like a California sunset. So it has pink and blue, which I love that color combination. So I had it in my mind that I was going to buy the fragrance until I visited the boutique, smelled it, and I knew right away it was not for me. I had read online that it was a mandarin, very citrusy, fresh style fragrance. I didn't realize it was going to be so masculine. I didn't like it at the beginning. I didn't like it when it dried down. At no point did I really enjoy the fragrance, which was incredibly disappointing because I had high hopes. If it was mediocre, I probably would have purchased it because I had tricked myself into thinking that I was going to really love it. And while I was there, I took the opportunity to smell several Louis Vuitton fragrances. Of course, you can't smell them all at once. And I have a couple samples that I've yet to try. None of them really stood out. There's not one that I thought, wow, this is amazing. Next on my list, Lil Fleur from Byredo. And I just got an email, I think today, this morning, they came out with a new fragrance, Blanche. So I'm excited to try that. Lil Fleur just wasn't very good. It's a very basic floral fragrance. It doesn't rank at all, really. Of all of the floral fragrances in my collection, I would wear all of them before I would wear Lil Fleur. Just nothing stands out about that fragrance, in my opinion. And maybe you like something that's just light floral, but sort of boring, unremarkable, forgettable. Perhaps there is a market for that, but that's really how I would describe it. My nose could not detect a single interesting note. This next fragrance was surprisingly not great because I love the original. It's the Gucci Gorgeous Gardenia Lavender Edition, which came out in December. I remember Sephora had a big deal whenever they were on their December Sephora-thon. It was, look out for this day, Gucci's going to launch something, and I was hoping it was makeup, but it wasn't. It was fragrance. I love Gucci Gorgeous Gardenia, one of the best floral fragrances. It is so yummy, delicious. I have the Rollerball, and that is one of the few travel scents I own that I could absolutely see myself purchasing the full size. But the lavender, it's not as good. They added a candy sweet tart note right at the beginning. It just isn't very nice. I think it cheapens the fragrance. I think Gorgeous Gardenia is very sophisticated. It's a very elegant floral, but the lavender version is almost I don't know, it just kind of has this harsh candy bite at the beginning. It smells a little bit more adolescent, I would say. Not my favorite. The original is just better. Same thing could be said for The Only One from Dolce & Gabbana. I love Dolce & Gabbana The One. I talk about that fragrance all the time. It is a classic. It is one of my all-time favorites, one of the top 10 fragrances I would wear for life. I just feel like nothing is as luxurious as Dolce & Gabbana The One. This new The Only One is, again, it's just not as good. I thought it would be an intense version. The juice is kind of this dark ambery color, so I was thinking it was going to be really intense, bold, very sensual, but it actually smells very medicinal. I don't like it at all. The dry down is a bit better, but why would you go with the new version where you don't really like it and you have to wait until it dries down until it's okay, versus the original that's just beautiful. This next fragrance isn't that bad, but it's not really great. It didn't strike me or stand out to me that much, and I feel like 2021 should be the year that we demand perfection out of all of our fragrances, all of our beauty purchases. It's not enough to be so kind of mediocre, although I do think that some people might really love this fragrance. It's the new Replica Bubble Bath. It's a fresh fragrance. Keynotes include soap bubble. It has a soap bubble accord. I had no idea what that meant. Rose, white musk, coconut milk. So when I sprayed this on the blotter card, initially I thought, wow, this is really good. It's very beautiful. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and purchase the travel spray just so I have a little something. And then I sprayed it on my skin and I let it sit there for a minute. And that coconut milk, that yummy creaminess, never really appeared. I was waiting for it to dry down. I kind of walked around, did a little shopping other places, and I kept smelling, kept checking in. I was hoping that it would have that smooth, creamy trail, and it just doesn't. In fact, I think I was left with the soap bubble accord because it just smelled really fresh and clean. It's a very clean, light fragrance, but I almost feel like I could smell that way, or I could get that same fragrance from an actual bubble bath or hand soap. It's a really beautiful smelling hand soap, not something that I would necessarily want in a fragrance. Now, I know there are some people who just want a light, clean, fresh fragrance. They don't want to smell like oak moss. For those people, I think they might really appreciate this. My next disappointment could have been a very expensive mistake. Luckily, I was able to exchange it. It's Loopy Funk, part of that Luby World collection from Christian Louboutin. I had to order all of these blind online from Saks. So this one has notes of black currant, Turkish rose, and patchouli. So I immediately thought of Delina from Parfum de Marly, and I thought, ooh, this could be really interesting. I love the sound of all of those notes. The description sounded exactly like a fragrance that I would love. But when it arrived, I couldn't smell anything. It was really nice at first, but then it just kind of disappears. It is so light, completely different from Louis Rouge, which is why I think Louis Rouge truly is the star of the show. Night and day, beautiful fragrance if it stuck around, if I could even detect it after 5 minutes. I don't mean it disappeared within a few hours. I'm not talking about Byredo longevity. I mean I could barely smell it on my arm within a minute. Within 60 seconds, it was like it evaporated right off of my skin. These fragrances are really pricey, $300. Luckily, they let me exchange it and nobody asked any questions. Since I had opened it and I had sprayed it, I felt sort of guilty, but I ended up picking up Amber Nuit from the Dior fragrances, and I love that scent. And I even got a little money back, so it was okay. All was right in the end. I was able to get my money for it, but I was so disappointed, and I'm still kind of hurt by this fragrance because it could have been amazing if it was a little bit stronger, a little bit more bold, like Louis Rouge. So now I'm not sure about any of the others. It makes me hesitant to order blind any of the other fragrances, even though there are a few others that sound interesting to me. I don't know. I feel like it's a real toss-up. It could go either way. And the final disappointing launch from 2020, it turns out I only have 9. I'm sure I could find a 10th, but I'm not going to do that to you guys. It's Roses on Ice from Kilian, complete opposite of Angel Share. And I thought this was going to be the one that would steal my heart. It has notes of cucumber, rose, juniper, sandalwood. I thought it would be a sparkling floral fragrance. But instead, I get a lot of juniper and sandalwood, and when it dries down, it's almost like a gin and tonic. It's very masculine, you lose all of the rose. Not very nice. It just wasn't right for me. I don't think it's a bad fragrance, and I don't think any of these fragrances are bad. Let me just be clear about that. None of them are bad. They're just not right for me. It's not something that I would ever wear. And you know when you have certain expectations of a scent, you read the notes, you do some research, and you think, this is it. This is going to be the one for me. And then you smell it, and it's not that great. Just kind of turns you off the fragrance. That was my experience with Roses on Ice. That completes my list of best of 2020, worst of 2020. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Leave me your comments, questions down below. Now it's your turn to sound off down below. I want your recommendations. I want to hear what your worst fragrance experiences were of the year. All of the highlights, good or bad. Drop me a comment. We will keep the conversation going there. As always, I will be linking everything mentioned, everything on my face down below in the description box for your convenience. And for more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell.